All right, guys. So this story takes place at one of the first security companies where I used to work. All right, the Ronald Reagan International Trade Center, located on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Okay. While working at the Ronald Reagan building, I worked for a company called Coastal International Security. They are no longer in business, but that is the company that held the contract during my time there. Now, during my time there, this contract is rather large, okay? It requires full staff, close to 300 officers to fully staff this particular building. It is a level 5 government building, meaning it has over 20,000, over 50,000 government employees, a ridiculous number. It encompasses 3 different agencies: USAID, Customs and Border Patrol, and EPA, along with GSA, which is General Service Administrations, which makes up the bulk of the building. Okay, so you can imagine how big this building is, the important agencies that it houses, and how important this particular building is, this contract. Okay. All right, so while I'm working here, so many officers, there can always be personality conflicts between many people. Obviously, with this many officers, there can be factions, groups, cliques, friends, everybody. There's almost every kind of officer there, is what I'm trying to say. There's this one particular officer, female officer, last name Dandridge, at this particular contract. Now, Dandridge was about 6 feet tall, light complexioned. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, she was average looking. She was not unattractive, but she was not like knock your socks off kind of attractive either. But Dandridge had a reputation for being rather promiscuous. I used to call her Miss Anybody Can Get a Turn. All right. Dandridge would mess with different male officers just for the sheer thrill of it. I don't think she was looking for any form of commitment. The male officers definitely were not looking for any form of commitment. And quite a few of the officers that we worked with had an opportunity to deal with Dandridge in a more sexual, grown-up adult play aspect. And it was well known around the contract. And before long, I want to say within my first 2.5 years on this contract, the number of partners that she had that we actually worked with, stood posts with, had gone up substantially. I won't mention any of their names because they're not important to this story, but there were quite a few of them. All right. So after about that 2.5 year mark, and she had, done what she had done with whom she had done it to, and like I said, she was not knock your socks off attractive. I'm not even sure if these other male officers thought that she was, or whether it was just, hey, if she's bopping, I'm going to go get bopped. Okay. I think that's more so what it was, because she definitely was not. She wasn't. Okay. She just was not. Okay. She wasn't hideous, but she was not that either. After about 2.5 years of her, doing what she does, this new officer is employed with the company, and he ends up on the contract. His name is Savoy, Ray Savoy. Okay. Savoy's new to the contract. He's there. He's trying to fill things out, fill people out, get to know his way around the contract, get to know, how to perform the job. I'm not sure if this is his first security job or not. I do know that he tried to be a law enforcement officer, but he had failed some portion of the screening process. I don't know if it was the background check or whether it was the agility check or the psychological. He failed some portion of it, and he was not able to successfully move forward into becoming a law enforcement officer. So he settled on armed security. Met the qualifications. He was hired. Okay. Savoy arrives on the contract, and Savoy is 6 feet tall, slim build, broad shoulders. He's biracial. I don't know what 2 ethnicities he is consisted of, but you can tell that he's a mixture of 2 different ethnicities. He's got that texture of hair that is jet black and looks wet all the time. And he's like really light skinned. Like, I know you guys are looking at me like I'm light skinned, but he was like light skinned, like lighter than me light skinned, like red bone light skinned. Savoy arrives on the contract. That's what he looks like. Officer Dandridge sees Savoy. Now, mind you, Officer Dandridge sends out her mating call quite often. She sees Savoy, and what she decides to do is let him know that she's interested in him, right? By this time, stories of Dandridge and other officers that she worked with have gone around the contract. Everybody knows about her. Everybody knows who she's dealt with. Like, everybody has all of this information. Now, some of the male officers are even telling detailed stories about the activities that they shared with this particular young lady. No judgment at all. I mean, if she's wild and out there, she's wild and out there. There's no reason to pass any type of judgment on her at all. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people that live life that kind of way. But she sees Savoy, and he's new to the contract. He has no clue what Dandridge has, what she's been, experiencing here on the contract and who she's been experiencing it with. So she lets him know, that she's interested, and she's very direct and aggressive about letting somebody know that she's interested, letting you basically know that you can get it, okay? Savoy sees this as a genuine opportunity to start dating this young lady, having no awareness at all about what things have taken place between her and other officers on the contract. They end up hooking up, and then they end up dating, and then they end up in a relationship, and then they end up married. And all of this happened in a matter of like 60 days, okay? Savoy and Dandridge become married, and she now changes her last name on her security officer nameplate from Dandridge to Dandridge Savoy Miss Anybody Can Get a Turn. That's what her nameplate says now, right? I'm kidding. But now they're married. And a lot of the officers there, both male and female, are like, they married? They got married that quick? Like, does he know, like, what she's done? Like, who she's been with? That on any day, he can be standing on posts with an officer or officers, plural, that have had sexual relationships with his now wife, okay? They had already, he had already moved in with her prior to them being married. So within 60 days, they hooked up, they dated, they formed a relationship, he moved in with her, they got married, all within 60 days. It was rather quick. It was unusually fast, okay? But they both wanted to do it, so it was done. Now, Savoy is a little bit aloof. He's very immature with his behavior, very childish. He's also very antagonizing. Like, Savoy likes to provoke emotional responses. He likes to try to do something to antagonize you, get you to respond, and then he feels satisfaction. He can laugh about the fact that he was able to make you mad or piss you off about something he said or something he did. And as a result of that, a lot of people did not like him. They didn't like working with him. They didn't like him around. People were always talking negatively about him because of this behavior. And I mean, to some extent, I could say rightfully so, okay? Now that he's married to Officer Dandridge, Miss Anybody Get a Turn, these male officers who don't like him are now using this opportunity to throw this in his face. Yeah, you dumbass nigga, that's why I done fucked your wife. That's why your wife was giving me head, man. That's why I got videos of your wife doing this in my phone, man. Your freak ass wife. Everybody had to turn on your wife. Just letting them have it. This was their way of getting back at him. Now, the thing about Savoy was, while he was immature and antagonizing with his behavior, he also was very quick to anger when when you said these kind of things. Now, he never fought anybody, but it would always turn into like a shouting contest, a swearing contest. Like, that was a measurement of which one of these people were tougher, okay? As I previously stated, a lot of people did not like Savoy's character, his behavior. They didn't like working with him. They didn't like being around him because it was always the same. There was never a mature moment, okay? So while officers are using that kind of information to antagonize him, they're slowly backing him into a corner, and he's starting to realize that his Friends are very few on this contract. It eventually got to a point where he came to work and he tried to stay to himself, tried to stay away from most people. And if he did talk, he was usually talking in a very like condescending tone, like somewhat disrespectful, like he thought he was better than you or he didn't like you. And that was usually to the newer officers that were unaware of his history here on the contract and his wife's history. Okay. Now, what was also strange was that Dandridge and Savoy, not only did they live together, they also worked for the same company and on the same shift. And what do I mean by that? They both worked at the shift was the 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 p.m. They both worked together. They were together like all the time as a result of this. So one particular day, Savoy, he comes to work. He comes into the armory / break room, because the break room, also housed all the weapons, and it was where the security officers would gear up before we went to roll call. We also sometimes had roll call in that room if we were pressed for time. He comes to work, comes into the armory / break room, and everybody immediately notices that he's got a bruise underneath one of his eyes, and he's got scratches all over his face, right? And we're kind of looking like, no, the fuck happened to this dude? Like those scratches are clearly an indication that he's been in a fight with either a woman or somebody who clearly did not know how to fight, right? So he comes in and he knows that all the attention is on him, and he's just kind of smirking about it, like he knows that he's about to be the story of the day and quite possibly the laughing stock of the day. He gets satisfaction from this kind of stuff, okay? A few moments later, Dandridge walks in, and Dandridge has this irritated look on her face, right? Like she looks like angry, frustrated in some kind of way. Nobody knows why, but we are making the assumption that the two of them must have gotten into a fight for some odd reason. And this wouldn't be uncommon of Dandridge, because Dandridge is very aggressive and like quick to tell you off, smart-mouthed herself. So, this wouldn't be an uncommon conclusion to come to. But those people who actually speak with Dandridge are going to be the ones to get the 411. They're going to go right to the source. So throughout the course of the day, a few officers had an opportunity to have a conversation with Dandridge about why her husband has a bruised eye and scratches all over his face. And she's like, nah, you know what, cuz, we was in the house, right? And this nigga was trying to like go through my phone or some shit, because he acting like he don't trust me. I guess whatever he been hearing about me throughout the building, he trying to figure out if I'm still talking to any of the men in here. Any of the men in this building or something, like he don't trust what I'm saying. So he tried to go through my phone. And I end up pushing him. And when I pushed him, he like tried to grab me, right? So after he grabbed me, I just started swinging on him and we started fighting. And you know what I mean? I had to beat his ass. So she says, right? So we found that to be kind of comical, because it's like, okay, not only is this guy immature, antagonizing, likes to annoy people, but he talks all of this trash, and it turns out he actually got beat up by a woman, so he can't fight either. Like, come on, man, that's like not good. Like, judging from his personality type and his behavior, and Dandridge's personality type and behavior, we already knew Savoy is immature. He's antagonizing. He's annoying. He likes to provoke you and then laugh about how he can get you to react. And Dandridge was a loud, smart mouth, obnoxious, and for a woman, somewhat aggressive. Like it was a perfect recipe for disaster. So we knew, at some point that there was going to be a confrontation between these people, because their behaviors are asking for that confrontation, right? So after she, let all that information out, now people know they got something extra that they can say to him anytime he gets on their nerve. That's why your wife whipped your ass. That's why I was fucking your wife. That's why, they were just throwing everything at him, because people just couldn't stand him because of his behavior. And at no point did he get that, okay? So about a week passes after this incident, right? And the very next week, when we're scheduled to come to work, Dandridge comes in. Normal looking, like, she always looks kind of somewhat angry in the face anyway, but, this is nothing unusual for her. She comes to work. She grabs her weapon. We go to roll call. Savoy didn't show up for roll call, right? Now, a roll call is treated as a no call, no show. In security, if you're expected to be work a certain shift, you have to be there at the start of that shift, or you have to notify somebody that you're running late or that you're not coming. You have to give some type of notification. Because there is no notification, it's treated as a no call, no show. So Savoy doesn't show up for work, doesn't show up for roll call, so to say. And then about 30 minutes pass, then an hour, then 2 hours, then 3 hours. We're almost getting to the halfway point of the day. Savoy never shows up to work. This is unusual because despite the fact that he's annoying to deal with, he actually comes to work every day, graciously. Like he wants to be there because he gets the satisfaction. I don't know if it's from the social interactions or if it's purely from pissing people off. You know what I mean? So he wasn't the type of person who called off for work sick or who just took off just because he didn't feel like doing it. He didn't show up to work at all that day. So now people are trying to figure out what's going on. And once again, they're going to the source. The source is his wife, Dandridge. Dandridge, what's going on? What's going on with your husband? Why he ain't come to work today? What's happening with him? That's unusual. Oh man, this motherfucker. I come home from work the other day, right? And when I come in the motherfucking house, I see this nigga. He on the motherfucking internet on Craigslist in the men seeking men section, right? And I'm like, nigga, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And I'm like, he wasn't in no damn men seeking men section. You just talking shit because y'all got into a fight and you still mad about this shit, right? And she's like, nah, I swear, I'm telling you, I caught that. He was in the men seeking men section and he had some Vaseline with him and shit. And I'm like, oh yeah, she definitely trying to make him look bad because she's pissed off, right? Turns out, after this confrontation took place after she got home from work on a Friday, over the course of the weekend, because we were off on the weekends, over the course of the weekend, there was another confrontation between the two of them. So apparently, he had wanted to talk to her about what she had seen, right? And she was very combative and argumentative about it. And when he tried to talk to her, she was like, look, I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about this shit. So he tried to press for the conversation by grabbing her arm, and she pushed him away. And when she pushed him away, his shirt came up and she saw that he had his gun tucked inside of his shirt. Obviously, this guy would have a gun. He can't fight. We know he can't fight, and a lot of people don't like him. So, I mean, in a sense, it makes sense that he has a gun. He does work in a parallel law enforcement type career field. But when she pushed him and his shirt came up and she saw his gun, she was already calling 911 because she really didn't want him in her house anymore because they kept getting into these scuffles, okay? He had moved into her apartment. So she was trying to get him out of her apartment. So the fact that he wouldn't leave, she was like, look, I don't want to talk to you. I'm going to call the police. So when she raised the phone and dialed 911, he smacked the phone out of her hand and tried to grab her. That's when she pushed him and his shirt came up and she saw the gun. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but when you call 911, I'm going to explain this because I used to be a 911 dispatcher. When you call 911, there's a pre-recorded greeting that happens. It usually sounds like 911 emergency. This is operator, whatever their number is. What is the location of your emergency? You guys may not know that is a pre-recorded message to kind of prompt the operator that they need to prepare to start taking information. And when you call, if you've called from a landline phone, what's going to happen is on our information screen, that number is going to show up. The address that number is registered to, the name of the person who registered that number, if it's a name attached to it, sometimes it'll say unknown, but if a name is made public, the name will also show up, okay? Now, in that particular situation, only thing that we have to do as the operator now is take the rest of the information as it comes and dispatch it to the appropriate responding agencies, okay? So when he knocked the phone out of her hand, he didn't realize that the phone had still connected because they were still in conflict. So the phone is on the floor and the operator is hearing all of this. Mind you, this is a landline phone, so the address, we already know where the address is happening, who lives at this address, and the phone number to call back. But we're trained not to get off of the phone, okay? If nobody's responding, just listen and keep collecting information and keep dispatching that information to the appropriate responding agency, which is what the operator did. They did their job. They did it well. So while they're continuing to argue, the operator hears yo, all I'm saying is I'm just trying to talk to you. I'm just trying to talk to you and explain what happened or whatever. And she's like, nah, I don't want to talk to you. I ain't got shit. I don't even want to hear what you got to say. You got that gun on you right there. So he's like, nah, fuck that. I can take the gun off. I can put the gun down and we can talk, trying to calm her down. This took place over like the course of the next minute and a half. The operator hears gun, okay? And they have an address where this incident is taking place. They have a name of a person who lives there and a phone number. So they dispatch this information to the appropriate authorities. And the police are now on their way. And that is a in progress. Man with gun is what we would call that. And it is in progress, which means they got their lights on, they got their sirens on. They're moving through traffic to get to this location because they heard man with gun. So after everything kind of calms down, the conflict starts to reach its conclusion, and humble heads start to prevail. She picks up the phone, and you can hear the operator on the other end. Ma'am, hello, ma'am, are you okay? Is everything okay? And she hangs the phone up. Okay, the operator can only hear this. They have no idea what's going on. So they've already dispatched the appropriate agencies, and Savoy is looking at his wife like, who is that? Who was on the phone? And she was like, that was the police. He's like, the police? The call went through? And she was like, I guess so. I didn't say nothing to him. I hung the phone up. And then he grabs the gun, grabs some of his stuff, and he gets the fuck out of there because he already knows that if that call was connected from a landline phone, that the police are going to be on their way. They're going to ask questions. Whether or not this gun was legally owned, registered, I don't know. So I don't know why his response was what it was, but he quickly got the hell up out of there when he realized that call got connected to the 911 call center. He left. Turns out this was the reason why Savoy didn't show up to work. In his mind, he said, I'm not going back to that job because if I go back, the police or FPS can show up and they can ask to speak to me, and then they can find out whatever the fuck it is that he had ran for that he didn't want them to find out about. And that could obviously infect his employment status. And just for future reference, just want y'all to know this. Anytime the fucking police are called, that relationship is over, okay? It's over. There's no question about this. So he never came back to the job. And in his mind, it was better not to go back than to go there and to be questioned by the police and possibly terminated. So if I don't go back, then HR will eventually put me down as a resigned because I just kept not coming back to work. Okay. And that's what he did. Dandridge and Savoy, he never went back to her apartment. And that was because he knew that the police now had an address. He never went back to her apartment or to that job. Anything that would connect him to her so that the police can find where he was and figure out whatever the hell it was that he did not want them to figure out. Okay. He ends up, so after he didn't come back, a little bit of time passed after that incident. I ended up getting terminated from that job. It was retaliatory termination because I was one of the union reps. Now, as a union rep, we're responsible for negotiating with management when an officer commits an infraction and trying to delegate what the punishment for that action is going to be. And I was very efficient at this job. I was so efficient at saving officers' jobs and reducing the consequences of their infraction that management could not stand me because they really wanted to make an example out of these officers and rule the contract with an iron fist. And some of the consequences they wanted, they were trying to use it to target certain officers, which was the unfairness that I saw, which is why I continued to intervene. Okay. Management created an opportunity to terminate me. And I won't go into that in this video because this video is not about me. All right. Perhaps I'll do another video on that. So after I get terminated, it was not really a big deal to me that I had gotten terminated. Okay. At that time, I had $17,000, maybe $20,000 sitting in my savings account. I had a final paycheck that was coming from the job for the pay period that I had worked. They had to cash out all of my vacation leave, which was going to be a full second paycheck. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can chill out for, a couple months before I got to start looking for another job. I'm gonna go ahead and collect this unemployment. And I'm just going to relax. It's winter time. It's going to be harsh weather out here, snow, icy road conditions, stuff that people don't like dealing with during their work day in the winter time. So I'm like, man, I'm just going to chill out for like 2 months before I start looking for another job. And that's what I did. Just relaxed, kicked back, you know what I mean? And paid all of my expenses from the money that I had saved and the unemployment money that I had coming in. It got to be February of the following year because my termination happened in November of the prior year. So it got to be February, sorry, of the following year. And I was like, okay, I got a little less than 3 months left on my unemployment. Let me go ahead and start looking for another job. So while I'm looking for other jobs, there was this contract, this building, this complex that I drove past. It's called the Census Bureau. It's located in, if I'm not mistaken, it's either in, I think it's in Suitland, Maryland, the Census Bureau. It's a pretty big contract. It's a pretty big set of buildings. And then there are other buildings located in this fenced in area. It's like a whole complex. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is government. Even if it's not, I'm sure it needs security because it's way too big. So I'm like, I'm going to go past this contract and I'm going to see who works there. So since I was driving past that contract already, I went into the main gate area, which is the only entrance that I knew of at the time. I went into the main gate area. And the main gate area is where traffic pulls in to the complex in one lane, and on the opposite lane, traffic exits. In the middle of the two lanes, there's a security officer booth, and that's who I was planning on talking to. So I pull into the main gate entrance, pull up to the security officer booth, and I roll my window down. And the security officer booth, the window swings open, and who the fuck is it looking at me? Goddamn Officer Savoy is looking at me. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And I'm like, nigga, what are you doing here? And he's like, I mean, I'm working. Like, obviously, that was a fucking stupid question to ask. These are the type of responses he gives. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I guess that was kind of dumb. He was like, you got your badge with you? And I'm like, badge? I'm like, nah, I don't work here. I'm only coming here to talk to a security officer to get the information to the company that secures it so I can apply. Now, I'm thinking to myself, me and Savoy have gotten into it before at the first contract that we worked, the Ronald Reagan building. And at that time, I can remember the tension was kind of high. And I noticed how fast his emotions went up to anger. So I was one of the people that really wasn't fucking with him. I wasn't talking a whole lot of shit about him, but I really wasn't fucking with him because I don't like people like that. So I wasn't expecting much information from him. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah, nah, I got you. The name of the company is DTM Corporation. You know what I'm saying? They located out in Silver Spring. The phone number is this. Matter of fact, this is the website right here. And if you're going to apply, you want to talk to somebody by the name of, I forget the guy's name, Mr. Epps. He's like the recruiter or something like that. Just let him know that I'm the one that referred you so I can get that little referral bonus or some whatever it was he was looking for. I think that's the reason why he truly was doing it. I don't know if he couldn't have been doing it because he thought I was cool because we had gotten into it at the other place. Well, he was like, yeah. I was like, all right, I definitely appreciate that. And then I went on about my business. I went out to Silver Spring, filled out the application, talked to who he needed to talk to. I had all my credentials, I had all my exhibits, everything that I needed to start the job immediately. And they was like, yeah, you got everything. You ready to rock and roll. Like, when can you start? And I'm like, I can start as soon as y'all need me to start. I'm thinking to myself, I still got a few months of unemployment to collect. But I mean, if y'all need me to start next week, I can do it. It ended up taking them a few weeks to process me, but they eventually hired me, and they hired me in the capacity of a supervisor because I had the supervisor training exhibit, and they needed a swing shift supervisor. So they hired me. I was the swing shift supervisor, and I worked from 4 p.m. to midnight, if I'm not mistaken. 4 p.m. to midnight was 4 p.m. to midnight was my shift, and I was responsible for supervising everybody, all the other security officers that were there during that particular time. Now, when I got to the contract, I started to notice Savoy being in certain places, whether he was going to lunch, whether he was standing on post, whether he was stopping past the office where I and a program manager were. I started noticing him, and he was still behaving the exact same way. Exact same behavior, still doing all of the same stuff, still annoying people, still pissing them off. And security officers, they're still feeling the exact same way about the guy, it was crazy to me that he had left the job. And he came to another one and he was acting the same kind of way. And it was getting the same kind of reaction out of the people that he worked with. Okay. And I remember he was getting in trouble a lot for things that were dumb. Like, I remember one particular time, there's these things called turnstiles. And the way they work is when an employee comes up and they scan their PIV card, the turnstile would open for them so that they can walk through, and then it would close just to make sure it's registering who's in the building. He was one of the officers that was responsible for sitting in the lobby where the turnstiles were. And what he would do was turn the turnstiles to a locked position so that people would scan and there would be no reaction from the turnstile. And then they would be looking like, well, what's going on? Is something wrong with my badge? And he would just be sitting there laughing about the fact that he was able to do something to inconvenience somebody. And you know what I mean? He found that stuff amusing and funny. Got written up for that. And the program manager couldn't stand him. Couldn't stand him because he had kept doing things akin to that. You know what I mean? It was like, this guy does not need to be working here. You know what I mean? We carry guns and 30 rounds of ammunition. This dude is acting like a child. He comes to work to play, to antagonize people. Like, we don't need him here. So the program manager always writing him up. And at that particular time, these write-ups, when he wanted somebody removed from the contract, you would have to send it to the COTAR. Okay? Remember, I spoke about COTAR in a video on my channel entitled How I Got Revenge on My Supervisor. All right, so the COTAR is the federal employee that acts as the mediator between the contract security company and the client that is the agency. So he works very closely with the security company to give directives of what the client expects. So if the security company is having an issue with an officer, they like to send it to him so that he can make a final decision. Program manager's like, hey, I don't want this guy on the contract. He's always playing. He's always getting in trouble. He's always getting written up. And he would just keep writing them up, giving it to the COTAR. Like, I recommend termination. I recommend termination. And the COTAR would take these write-ups. His name was Mr. Coates. He would always take these write-ups and he would take them in consideration. Now, Coates was like 6'2", 6'3". He was overweight, very much overweight. His legs were like bowed inward, like they were struggling to support the weight from his upper body. He had this very feminine way of talking and kind of this weird way of walking, like he was moonwalking forward when he walked, like he couldn't pick his fucking legs up or something. I don't know. And I always was like, man, this dude, I'm pretty sure this guy is a homosexual. He has to be. Like, the way he speaks, the way he moves, the way he behaves, all his mannerisms say homosexual to me. And people like, nah, Coach cool. He ain't gay. Coach got a wife and like 4 kids. And I'm like, well, you know, that don't necessarily mean nothing, because his behavior definitely says otherwise. Now, it's not an issue that he's gay, but heterosexual men such as myself like to be aware when there is a homosexual male around them, if for no other reason but to be aware. You know what I mean? But people were denying that he was. But as I was saying, every time Savoy would do something that he got in trouble, got written up for, where the program manager was like recommending him to be terminated, it would go to the COTAR. And the COTAR would do nothing about it. Like, nah, he just immature because he young, you know what I mean? He still got a lot of potential, you know what I mean? He come to work on time, he do what we need him to do for the most part. Yeah, he have a few hiccups or whatever, but you know, we you know what I mean? I see his potential, so I'm gonna give him another chance. And another chance would turn into another chance, and another chance, and another chance, and another chance, and another one, like DJ Khaled, and another one. You know what I mean? It just kept going on and on and on. And we just kind of felt like, man, we ain't gonna never be able to do nothing about this guy, man, because the COTAR feels like he can become something great, so he's not, you know, taking any action against them. So eventually what happened with that company, after I worked there for about 6 months, and then I ended up transferring to a smaller contract that only was manned by me and one other guy. So we were now going to be off on weekends and federal holidays, and I was now working from 7 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. I did not have to wait on a relief. I didn't have to stay at work till midnight. There was no overtime opportunity, which I was cool with at the time. And like I said, I was off on federal weekends and holidays, and it was just 2 of us. So when it came time to close, we would simply lock the doors, unarmed, and we would be out. Easy work. So I was cool with that. During the time that I was working at the site that I transferred to, another security company had reached out to me, and they had offered me employment. One of the jobs that I applied to back in February, they had offered me employment. This was going to be at the United States Department of Energy, which is located in Washington, D.C., around the National Mall. Like a lot of those contracts around the mall, that's generally the area where I would prefer to work, okay? They reached out to me. They weren't bringing me in as a supervisor role, but they were going to be paying me more per hour than what I was currently making. And I was like, man, and they were going to give me a top secret clearance. I was currently only utilizing a secret clearance. And I was like, yo, I'm taking this job. People who go work over there, they generally say they like it and it's cool. They get more days off. They work 4 days on, 3 days off. And then they work 3 days on with 4 days off. They do like a rotating. I'm like, man, I'm taking this. Every other week is like a vacation. I'm taking this. So when I decided to take the job, I told my current employer, DTM, I'm like, look, check this out. I'm not quitting. I have training with another job. That training is going to be 1 month long. Okay. I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep this job either full-time or part-time. It all depends on what hours I get over there. Just know that I'm not quitting, but I'm not going to be here for a month because I have to go through training. They said, cool. They understood. Now, the Department of Energy, they were armed SPOs that had top secret clearances. But for whatever reason, they wanted us to train on a FLETC facility because they had a contract with the range and they liked using their little city that they had where you can practice moving down a hallway as a 4-man team and room clearing drills and all of that stuff. No big deal. And they gave us a certificate for it. So I'm like, hey, I can put this with my resume and all my other credentials. So cool. While I'm going through training is over with. I call the company back. I'm like, hey, I'm going to drop down to a part-time position on these 2 days of the week because I will always be off on these 2 days. So I'm like, what y'all got for me? They was like, yeah, so that company is no longer in business. I'm like, what the fuck you mean no longer in business? They're like, the government came in and they took all of our contracts overnight. Turns out that the owner of DTM was doing some funny business with taxes and paperwork. I don't fucking know. I don't know all the details, but whatever it was, FPS, DHS, GSA, they found out. And because she was not in compliance with whatever it was that was supposed to be done overnight, they shut her company down. They took all of her contracts and awarded them to other companies that had bid on them when she had won them. Like, I guess whoever the runner-up was got to get that contract. So that was that. So I'm like, damn, you know what I mean? Now, needless to say, Savoy eventually got terminated from the from the Census Bureau where he was working. The Kotar's protection only lasted so long because now the program manager started sending this information directly to internal security, which is the client. They kind of oversee the Kotar because he's really fed up with Savoy's antics and his behavior and not being able to do anything about it. And the fact that the Kotar kept kind of vouching for him, it was starting to diminish his reputation, so to say. It was kind of starting to make his superiors question his decision making and whether or not he should be in the position of Kotar that he was in. So Savoy eventually got terminated. Now, when he got terminated, Savoy's thing was, I need to find another job. All right. I don't know where he ended up going. Initially, I didn't know. I wasn't even concerned with it. I thought now that I'm at the Department of Energy, Savoy and I were never going to cross paths again. Certainly, we were not going to cross paths again. Savoy ended up moving out, not moving out, but ended up working out in Arlington County in Virginia. So he felt like I'd already done security in DC, and I'm trying to stay away from that because the police might be looking for me, and I'm trying to keep hidden whatever the fuck it was he was trying to keep hidden. And then he had worked at the Census Bureau, which is in Maryland. And after he got terminated from there, he said he wanted to try something different. So he ended up going to do armed security out in Virginia, which requires most of the same things, but a different license called the DCJS. That's where he went. Okay. I eventually left the United States Department of Energy and started working right across the street at the United States Department of Transportation. Okay. And it was at the United States Department of Transportation. Actually, I started at the one right across the street from the Department of Energy, but I eventually transferred to the one that was in the Navy Yard. And it was at that contract that things came back around again. So while I'm at the United States Department of Transportation, I'm on post one day with these two young ladies, Officer Fuller and Officer Austin. Now, Officer Austin is a character. She's very social, but she's playful, loud, and obnoxious. She's a character, to say the least, right? Austin goes on break. Me and Fuller are on post, and this is on a Saturday, so it's nobody around. We're just there. We're on post in the main lobby, and we're having a conversation about some of the craziness that's going on in security companies, right? Not in security companies, but with security officers, because there was an incident where two security officers, or one security officer, got to shooting at another security officer at a Walter Reed, which was a hospital, but it had contract security at the main gate. And we were talking about that story, like, because apparently one officer, was in a bad mood. Another officer kept trying to talk negatively to him in a bullying fashion, hazing fashion. He had enough of it. And he pulled his gun out and shot at him. And then he ended up chasing the guy, like down the street emptying shots at him, missing these shots, probably on purpose, who knows, or whether he just couldn't shoot. He ends up shooting a full clip, missing these shots, ends up getting arrested and taken to jail for attempted murder. The other security officer, obviously, he ends up getting terminated. But yeah, so we were talking about that particular incident, and she was like, yeah, that other craziness that happened on the Saint Elizabeth. It was an officer that was on the Saint Elizabeth contract. And I was like, what happened over there? And she was like, no, it is a mess. That contract, they not screening people the proper way. They got people working on there that they didn't hire dudes that were felons. They got these felons carrying guns. They not doing their investigations the proper way. So FPS went over there and had to fire all of those people. And then you had that one guy over there, man, that had that crazy thing happen. And I was like, what? And she was like, what is that guy's name? What is his name? Hold on, right? So before I tell you, I want to tell you his name, because you didn't work at quite a few places. You might even know him. And then I was like, dang, what he look like? If you forgot his name, if you describe him, I can start reciting names of people that fit that description. And she was like, hold up. Let me call Austin, because I know Austin used to work with him. So she picks up the phone. Mind you, Austin's on break. She uses the desktop phone to call Austin's cell phone. Austin answered the phone, hello. And she real loud, like I said, loud, ghetto, like, just like that. Hello? And she's like, Austin, remember you was telling me that story about that crazy shit that happened with that security officer that you worked with? I'm trying to tell Rayhan about it. What is his name? And she's like, you talking about Savoy? And she was like, okay, yeah, because me and Rayhan up here talking about all these different things. I'm about to tell him this story. Yeah, okay, but that's his name? All right, bet. And hang on the phone. And she's like, yeah, his name was Savoy. And I'm like, Savoy? I know a guy named Savoy. He about 6 feet tall, really light skinned, like biracial, looked like he could be like a mulatto or something like that. And she was like, oh, I don't know what he looked like. I just know his name because, I was reading about the joint. And I'm like, reading about it? I'm like, what happened? And she was like, I'm gonna let Austin tell you, because Austin worked with him, so she know everything better than I do, right? So Austin ends up coming back from break. And Austin comes in to the lobby and she's like, yeah. Who up here was talking about Savoy? And I'm like, we both were really. She like, that old donut, man. That boy crazy, man. That boy gay as I don't know what. And I was like, gay? What? He's not gay. Savoy was married. I know what he told me. He ain't gay. And she's like, nah, that donut is gay. Like, what are you talking about? I know. I used to work with him. That boy is gay. I'm like, what make you think he gay then? And she's like, well, first of all, we caught him in a men's bathroom airing out his butthole. And when she said airing out his butthole, she's very animated, so she had to try to imitate what he was doing. So what she did was she like put her hands down, like kind of like where her crotch area was, and she like lifted one of her legs up and started like hopping around in a circle, going in this motion, kind of like what Carlton does on the Fresh Prince when he does that dance. She was doing that with kind of one leg up in the air, making sure her butt was jiggling, right? And I was like, he was fucking stupid, I'm like, he was airing out his butthole. What the fuck does that even mean? She's like, airing out his butthole. And then she kicked her leg up again, raised her leg up again, poked her butt out, and was like imitating somebody that was like fanning their butthole with toilet paper. And I'm like, what the fuck is you talking about? I'm like, maybe he was just wiping his ass or something like that. She was like, no, that is not I don't know no man that wipe. Do you wipe your ass like that? You a man, do you wipe your ass like that? And I'm like, well, no. And then she's like, exactly. He was airing out his butthole and putting Vaseline up in there. And I'm like, hold on. How the fuck would you even know what he was doing if he was in the stall? And she's like, cause there was another security officer in that donut and they was in the stall next to him and they was using the bathroom. And they took their phone and turned the camera on and kind of slid it underneath the stall and angled it so they can see what he was doing. And on the camera, we got him on video. He got his pants off. So he butt naked from the waist down. He got one leg kicked up on the commode so you can see his whole booty butthole spread open. And he in there patting that joint with toilet paper and sticking Vaseline in there. And I'm like, maybe, what is that, like hemorrhoids or some shit like that? I don't fucking know. And she's like, no, Donut, he's gay. I keep trying to tell you he's gay. And I'm like, look, I don't know whether the dude gay or not. We wasn't talking about his sexuality. We was talking about all this crazy shit that's going on with security officers on these contracts. And apparently you worked with him at another contract. So I'm like, what craziness happened? And she was like, oh, you don't know? And I'm like, nah. Apparently, after Savoy left the Census Bureau, DTM Corporation, after he ended up getting terminated from there because the co-tar was unable to vouch for him any longer. He ended up going to work out in Arlington County, Virginia, which required a DCJS. They were easier to get on and they paid just as much money. So he went out to Virginia to do armed security. While he was at work during armed security, one day in July, shortly after Independence Day, there was a young lady and her mother that were out shopping, and they saw Savoy in his security officer uniform actually doing his job. I mean, he was by himself, so he didn't have anybody to antagonize, to provoke, to laugh at, to taunt. He didn't have anybody to interact with, so he was actually doing his job properly. And if I'm being honest, Savoy was not a bad looking guy. I guess I could see why women would find him maybe attractive. Like I said, he was 6'1". He was really light skinned. He had a different texture of hair. He had broader shoulders, and he was like a thin build. He wasn't necessarily athletic, but he was like average, but he had broad shoulders. And in a security officer uniform, it'll make you look like a certain kind of way. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, I suppose I could see how women may have found him attractive for those particular features right there. He also had he always kept his face clean shaven and had like a stronger jawline maybe. I don't fucking know. Like the facial, I guess, you know what I mean? But anyway, young lady and her mother, they see him. They both find him attractive. And I guess the mother's like, you know what, isn't he your type? You know, shouldn't you want to talk to him? The girl, she's acting bashful. She doesn't want to approach a guy that's not ladylike. Mom says, shit, well, I'm going to go say something to him. Mom walks up to Savoy. Excuse me, how you doing? My name is, such and such. I just wanted to come over here and tell you that you look really nice in your security officer uniform. My daughter saw you over there. She really would like to talk to you, but she's kind of embarrassed to say anything. Now, she points Savoy's attention to her daughter, who's sitting down looking like kind of shy, and he finds her equally attractive. He goes, or she finally comes over and he explains to her, hey, my name is Ray Savoy. She exchanges her name. I won't say it in this video. They exchange phone numbers and they kind of hit it off. They have us, she's laughing at his jokes. She's actually relieved that this is paying off, that her mother actually said something to her, and now her and this guy are actively engaging each other. So after they exchange numbers, he's like, hey, I'm going to call you when I get off so we can talk some more. And when he got off of work, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He calls her, they begin talking and having all this dialogue, and things are going well between them. He eventually starts planning dates that are like old-fashioned type dates that motherfuckers was doing back in the 70s. Like, I'm gonna pick you up and I'm gonna take you out for milkshakes and ice cream type shit. I ain't never took a girl out for milkshakes and ice cream on any date, and I'd have been on a lot of dates. He doing all that old-fashioned shit, all that, I guess you could say, dare I say, traditional type stuff, I guess, you know what I mean? And she's loving it. This is like exactly what she was looking for. She's glad that, her mother created the opportunity for her and this guy to be talking. Okay, so they going on. I mean, he's doing all these other like romantic things for her too. Like if she's tired and doesn't feel like walking up steps, he'll like literally pick her up like he's on a honeymoon and carry her up the steps so that she doesn't have to use any effort to do it. He's doing like all of these traditional, old-fashioned, gentlemanly type things for her, and love, like at first sight type thing. He's in love with her. She's in love with him. It's strong attraction for each other. Perfect, right? So after a few weeks, they end up in a relationship. They dated for a couple weeks. Now they're in a relationship. Savoy at the time was living in a place called Brandywine, Maryland, which is close to Charles County, and it is quite far away from Arlington, Virginia, where he worked. It's probably like 40-something minutes away. And he was expressing to her, hey, I live all the way out here, but I work out here. If you cool with it, can I move in with you and I'll just pay half of the bills just so I'm closer to work and it can save me time on the commute and I can be with you more often. And she obliged. She actually loved the idea of this man that she loves and who loves her living in the same house so they can cohabitate, right? So he moves in with her 6 weeks after they met, okay? Keep in mind, they met in July. So it is now August. halfway through August, and they lived together. Now, as the holidays began to approach, Thanksgiving would be the holidays that were approaching, and they were making plans to spend that with her family. Now, this young lady is originally from, if I'm not mistaken, Detroit or Chicago, one of those colder areas up north. So they went up there to visit her family and spend Thanksgiving with her family. And when they got there, this was their first introduction to Savoy. And, he's meeting everybody, all smiles and everything. And then he pulls the men aside and he's letting the men know, yeah, you know what I mean? I love her. Don't say anything, but, you know what I mean? I'm about to ask her to marry me. Like, I'm about to do that later on this afternoon. And they were kind of looking like, marry her? How long y'all been talking? And he's like, well, we met like in July, but you know what I mean? I love her. She loved me. You know what I mean? Why wait? I know I want to spend the rest of my life with her, and I got the ring and everything right here. I'm going to ask her to marry me this afternoon. And y'all ain't got to worry about, me protecting her no more. I know y'all are family, but y'all all the way up here now. I can protect her, you know what I'm saying? I keep my gun. I work as an armed security officer, you know what I mean? So I'm always trained to react. And even when I'm not at work, I keep my gun in my car underneath the seat. So, I can protect her. That's not going to be a problem. And I know y'all all the way up here, y'all can't do but so much. And they was like, gun? Like, what do you need a gun to protect her for? Like, can he fight? Can he, you know what I mean? Like, these are the thoughts that they're having. So they're concerned, one, about him trying to marry her so quickly, and two, concerned about him having a gun and that being his first reaction when it comes to protecting her. Okay. So when they get an opportunity, they're just kind of observing his behavior, how they interact. And sure as hell, he gets down on one knee and he proposes to his girlfriend. And ecstatic with emotions, she says yes. She knows that she loves this man. He loves her. And she wants to spend the rest of her life with him. All right. So now there's this semi-celebration that's taking place. The men in her family pull her to the side. Are you sure this is what you want to do? You haven't known this guy that long for y'all to be living together and now engaged. And she's like, yes, it's absolutely what I want to do. Like, I love this guy. You know what I mean? He loves me. There's no need to waste any more time. We already live together, so why not? Her decision was made, and they got engaged that particular day. After the holidays are over, they come back to Virginia where they were living. And, a little bit more time passes. We now move past Thanksgiving, and we're now into December, all right before holidays are approaching. Now, on this particular day, his now fiance comes home and Savoy is in the bedroom. When she comes home, Savoy is on the internet. So when she comes into the room, I guess she startles him, because he wasn't expecting her to come back home as soon as she did from wherever she was. So he closes, the laptop. Oh, hey baby, I wasn't expecting you to be back so soon. What's going on? How was your day? Everything okay? And she's like, yeah, everything's fine. I guess his reaction kind of raised some suspicions. And she's like, hey, I left, groceries in the car. Like, can you go to the car to get the heavier bags for me? Yeah, baby, I got you. I'll go get them. I'll be right back. Gives her a kiss, a little hug, things to console and comfort her. And then he goes out to the car to get the groceries. While he's getting the groceries, she picks up the laptop and she looks at what it was that he was looking at, because his reaction, like I said, triggered some type of suspicion or maybe concern. She opens the laptop and she sees profiles of men that are nude, men that are showing, their penises, men that are spreading their rear end to show their rectum and all kind of stuff like that. And she's like, what the fuck is this? And why is my fiance looking at this? He comes back into the house, comes into the bedroom, and he sees her standing there looking agitated, holding the laptop. And she's like, hey, baby, what's wrong? Why you got my laptop? Why you looking at the laptop? And she's like, what is this shit that you're looking at? Like, why are there pictures of naked men, their dicks? Why are they showing their assholes? And more importantly, why are you looking at this stuff? Are you dealing with men? Are you gay? Are you bisexual? Is that something that you didn't disclose to me? Is this something that you're interested in doing? Nah, baby, nah, it's not like that. If you give me a chance to explain. And she's like, you know what? I don't believe you. I don't believe you. My family was right. I all of this is happening way too fast. I don't know who you are, because no man that I've ever dated have I ever seen them looking at pictures of other men showing their, their dicks and their assholes and being completely nude. Like, this is their thing. Like, you got some secret kind of thing going on. And if this is your thing, this is a bad idea. We don't need to get married. Matter of fact, we don't even need to be in a relationship. I need you to be out of my apartment. Like, you need to leave, like, right now. And he's like, no. If you give me a chance, I can explain. Let me explain. Let me try to talk to you. She's like, no, I don't want to hear it. You need to leave. And in fact, if you're not going to leave, then I'm going to go to my mom's house. And when I get back, you need to be gone. So as she starts to walk away, he reaches out to her and he's trying to call for her, trying to get her to stop, trying to get her to listen to what he has to say. She continues to walk. Savoy then reaches for the gun. The same gun that his previous wife had mentioned was tucked in his pants when she called 911 and the operator heard it. The same gun that he showed to her family members back home in Chicago or Detroit, that caused a little bit of concern with them. And in a fit of rage, he points his firearm at her, at his fiance, at the woman he loves, and fires 6 shots into her. Now, these shots were not intended to wound her. They were not even intended to really affect her fatally. In his mind, in the fit of rage that he was feeling, firing these shots was the only way that I can get her to stop and to listen to that which I have to say. She falls to the ground, bleeding, dying in their bedroom. Savoy now coming to the realization that what he had just done was cause physical harm to the woman that he loved, the woman he had just asked to marry him, the woman he had planned to spend the rest of his life with, the woman who loved him. Realizing that he had just harmed this woman, he rushes over to her. He gets down on the floor next to her and he attempts to pick her up and hold her in his arms. Baby, you okay? Baby, are you okay? I need you to answer me. But she's in the second phase of dying. And then in another fit, this time not of rage, but of sheer sadness and depression, he realizes what he had just done and how it's about to affect not only him, but everybody else who this was a part of this young lady's life. And he grabs his gun, the same gun that his fiancée had called the police about in his previous marriage, the same gun that he had shown to his fiancée's family over the Thanksgiving holiday, the same gun that he had just used to fire 6 shots into her. And he turns the gun on himself and he pulls the trigger. Ray Savoy ended his life and hers. Neighbors hear the gunshots go off, but the neighbors, concerned for their own safety, aren't going to go knock on the door. So instead, they call the police. They explain to the police that we heard gunshots coming from this apartment. Can you guys come to go check on the welfare of our neighbors? The police show up, and when they gain entry into the apartment, they find Savoy's fiancée in his arms with 6 shots in her body, and Savoy holding her with one of his arms and one whole gunshot wound in his temple. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. I chose to tell this story tonight because Savoy had a lot of issues that he was dealing with, issues that were far deeper and darker than what we could have imagined. Now, everybody who came in contact with him at these workplaces knew that something is wrong with this young man. He's very aloof, he's very strange, he's very weird. You know what I mean? He's just not normal. But nobody thought that it was so severe that it could get to that particular point. I've seen episodes of him get angry and how quickly his emotions change from calm to infuriated and back down. but I'm not clinically qualified to diagnose him with something. I don't know if it's manic depression. I don't know if it's bipolar, if he has multiple personalities. I don't know what it was, but he struggled very much with his own sexuality, something that he felt that he needed to keep secret. And while I'm on the topic of his sexuality, it makes me think back to every particular instance that I described in this same video. And it makes me believe that his initial wife, Dandridge, she was telling the truth. When she saw him on Craigslist in the men seeking men section, looking for male prostitutes, she wasn't doing that despite him. She wasn't doing that because she was angry. She was doing it because it was true. She was telling us that because it was the truth. It makes me think about the Kotar who kept saving him when his job was on the line. The Kotar who I already thought was a homosexual male, despite being married with children. And it leads me to believe that the reason that the Kotar kept vouching for him is because the Kotar sensed that there was that kind of energy within him. And it was, hey, I'm supposed to fire you, but maybe I can keep you around if these kind of things can happen between you and I. And it was later when Austin was talking about him airing out his butthole and packing it with Vaseline, and that was caught on camera. And it makes me remember what his first wife said about him on Craigslist with Vaseline. And I'm just like, were the signs there all the time and I just wasn't seeing them? Was everybody just turning a blind eye to this guy's behavior? Because there were a lot of issues within this young man. And at 29 years old, he had taken his own life and the life of his 31-year-old fiance. Not even 6 months after they initially met each other. Not even 6 full months. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. And like I said, I chose to tell this story because I don't want you guys to make the mistake of thinking that you have coworkers that have gone through all these background checks and they don't have other shit that is going on within their life. Shit that can turn violent and deadly in a moment's notice. Don't just think because, I got this job and this person had to go through this background check and they had to get a clearance from the government for this, that it means that they are legit. No, people can be dealing with some things and they can be far more dangerous than you believe. And in a moment's notice, their inability to control their emotional impulse and mental instabilities can cause them to act out violently just like that. 2 lives were ruined. Multiple lives were ruined. 2 lives ended. So be careful when it comes to your coworkers. Because whether you believe it or not, they can be far more dangerous than you believe. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, I need you to do me a favor and smash the like button. Helps the video reach other viewers who will enjoy it just as much as yourself. If you're new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe. Tap the notification bell so you can be notified immediately when my next upload goes public. I do offer a channel membership. You can find the link for it in the description of this video, where you will get exclusive membership perks, such as members only videos and early access to new videos. If that interests you, I do invite you to join. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the real Rayhan. And once again, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this freezing cold evening here in December. I hope you all enjoy your night. I'm glad that Jake Paul got that ass knocked out by a real boxer. And yeah, as always, I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.